The latest UK case of coronavirus is the first to be contracted within the country rather than abroad. The man walked into a GP surgery in Surrey feeling unwell. Coronavirus is now spreading faster through England than the government's own worst-case scenario.
The Department of Health has announced in the last half hour that 14 more people across Britain have died after testing positive for coronavirus.
Pictures have emerged of a mass grave in New York as the death toll continues to rise.
We can confirm that 2 patients in England who are members of the same family have tested positive for coronavirus.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Stay at home and protect lives. It's not a request, but an instruction to the British people.
Do you feel like the UK was prepared for this virus?
At a local level, I think we were pretty well prepared. Certainly where I work, they did a lot to prepare us for what was going to happen, and they organised getting us into different teams and put on new rotas and things. More widely though, kind of from a UK sense, we knew what was coming, and it still ended up being a bit of a disaster, didn't it? So.
Allora, una siciliana e l'altra era? Ah sì, scusa. Va benissimo. Ciao, grazie. Ciao.
I feel that our British government hasn't handled the situation as well as they could have, because they were very quick to judge how the Italians had handled the pandemic and were very critical. And Italy had given the warning, and because the UK was 2 weeks behind. So we had so much time to prepare for it, yet they did nothing.
That seriously, we didn't think, we could see it all happening in China, and we didn't, anticipate that it might happen to us. So I normally work in orthopaedics, which is surgery to do with bones, or broken bones, that sort of thing. And we were moved from that service to a kind of, they call it the pan-medical rota. So we were all moved onto this big medical rota, and we were just dealing with just COVID patients, basically. So I spent a couple of weeks on the respiratory unit.
My name is Samantha. I am 48 years old. I live with my daughter Isabella and my dog Elsie and my cat Tilly. And I am a civil servant. I work for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. In a massive way, it has affected her because she was supposed to sit her GCSE exams in June, and the exams were cancelled. So she was gutted because she'd been working so hard for them. And when they were announced, she was absolutely distraught. She was in tears, and she felt that all the hard work she'd been doing the last couple of years was sort of for nothing. So it has affected her really badly, but she has come to accept it, that this is one of these things. No, it hasn't been easy transitioning to a different way of life as a single parent, because it's just one of you, and you need to be able to sort of carry on doing stuff even though the situation has changed. As I suffer from asthma and high blood pressure, 2 health conditions that could affect me severely if I got the virus, I was very worried about catching it, and I was also very worried about if I did caught it, who would care for her. So I think people who are breaking the lockdown rules to sort of, meet friends or pop in and visit family are being very selfish, and not only are they putting themselves in danger, but they're actually putting the other person in danger. So I feel it's very selfish.
I think people are still not realizing that, people are dying. I feel like there was a point where people realized that, the virus is here. Now it's almost like people have forgotten. And it's same with like, for example, Black Lives Matter as well and all these movements. It's like people care for a bit and then they forget.
So I actually got coronavirus at the end of April. Started with all the kind of classical symptoms. I got a cough, a fever, completely lost my sense of smell. I had terrible viral conjunctivitis. So my eyes just felt like I'd been like chopping onions all day. It wasn't a terribly pleasant experience, to be honest. I was pretty unwell. I can't describe an illness like it. Luckily, I've not had any or many major illnesses in my life, but you know, just getting out of bed and walking to the sofa, it's just wiped out, you know? It was awful.
The first city having a coronavirus is Wuhan, and that is one of my favorite cities in China. So when I heard about the news, I almost heartbroken because I love the city so much, the culture, the food, the people. So, but I can't do nothing because I'm in Britain, and all my family, my friends, stay in China. One time is in Wimbledon, another time is in Paris. In Wimbledon, when I go to Morrison shopping, and the two white guys, because I'm Asian face, so they look at me and just cover their face and say, back to China, you should stay here. And another time, I meet this situation in Paris, in beginning of the March. On the tube, my friend and I, we are only 2 persons in the whole tube are Asians. So a lady in front of us, she just look at us and cover her face and just do something like that. Because I can't speak French, so my friends just explain to her, oh, we are fine, we are no coronavirus. Don't do this to us.
It's been really difficult for some people. You know, as we mentioned before, lockdown's been incredibly hard in terms of, you know, that isolation and that loneliness. And it's got to the point now, you know, we've been doing this for many, many, many weeks, and people's kind of attention span for these sorts of things does begin to wane over time. I think if you add to that what's happened with, you know, certain government individuals, this whole Dominic Cummings thing, has been a bit of a disaster, isn't it? Because you had a situation where most of the country were being really good at obeying the rules, which I think were pretty clear, actually. They're trying to get out of it on all sorts of technicalities, but I think the rationale for the rules was clear. What the rules were was pretty clear. And then that was kind of bent out of shape by the government, who kind of threw all these loopholes into why what Dominic Cummings did was acceptable. And I think that kind of was the final nail in the coffin, really, for people. The fact that people haven't been seeking medical advice for, you know, for all sorts of medical problems. The fact that economically businesses are going out of business and people are getting made redundant or unemployed. I think those hidden costs are going to be around for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's my brother who is holding in that. I remember that day we had to wear white t-shirts and jeans. We did like a whole family photo shoot. My dad, he actually got coronavirus right at the beginning of quarantine. And it was really scary because I wasn't here. I was at uni and, it was just him and my brother. My brother was fine, but you know how boys are. Sometimes they won't ask for help if they need it. So I was more worried that my dad was just kind of sitting there in bed, like dying. But he was okay. He's fine now.
Yeah, you can stroke her if you want. She's gonna jump.
He used to live here with us, with me, my dad, and my brother, but he started to get Alzheimer's, and so initially we started with having carers come in. I think it was like twice a day, just get him up, get him dressed, and all that stuff, everything he needed to be done. And eventually it just got to the point where we couldn't give him the care he needed. He needed 24-hour care, and so we moved him to St Vincent's care home. So he stayed there, and then I was at uni, but I know we wouldn't have been able to go see him anyway. I called a couple times just to check up on him during quarantine and all that, and they said he was doing fine, as fine as it's expected. And on April 6th, he passed in his sleep.
The virus has changed my studies massively because of the whole course that we were doing. It's extremely practical based. What it was specifically, it was production and performance. So half of it was performing live as an instrument, and basically every term we would build up to then do a massive gig at the end of it.
I know loads of my friends and myself, loads of trouble sleeping, especially now with everything that's going on. There's so much more anxiety. I used to never get anxiety. I've never had anxiety in my life until this, and it's so irritating because it's the way for me to feel okay is to be around people and socialise and all of that stuff. But the school definitely gave us loads of support, and I guess everybody was kind of in the same boat, so we were all kind of support each other. But yeah.
Everyone has their own problems and everyone's dealing with it in their certain ways. So, some people would be absolutely fine. They're just at home doing their work. Others, they just completely shut down and haven't left their houses for months and months on end.
And I also miss not, sort of having a more relaxed attitude in public about touching the bus poles or meeting with people, or not being paranoid about, having to wear a mask on the train, or worrying whether or not, your Oyster card has a virus on it. That sort of relaxed attitude. Because I feel now when I'm in public, I'm always really tense and careful about not catching the virus. So I miss not having that in my head, to be honest.
When lockdown started, I was kind of, okay, let's see how this adapts. And I think it was the first couple of weeks, it was absolutely amazing just being in here, working music every single day. But then after a while, it kind of just sunk in how long the whole virus was going to go on for, that no one really expected. From January, no one thought that it was going to be 6 months long. At just settling in that there's nothing really to wake up for. That after a while, when I finished all my assessments, everything got finished. Yeah, it just kind of felt like there was no real point of waking up in the morning. Lockdown happening, school finishing, and then my course changing was a massive thing. I just didn't really feel like there was much point anymore. That it was everything kind of, toppled one on top of each other. And then, different problems started settling in. Self-harm got introduced back into the play, and my eating disorder got a bit worse. And that was kind of the breaking point that I was like, I don't really know what to do at this point. That I'm not at the right place to help myself, and I don't think there's other people that know what to do. So I'd been in hospital before, and I kind of just went, okay, I know what's best for me, so I just went back.
Okay, my son Jack is 12 years old. He was diagnosed at 4 years old with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. He goes to a special school and he's just gone back to school. We're very lucky that Jack copes with change very well. as long as he has a familiar and a constant in his life. Throughout lockdown, we've made sure that he has had some sort of routine, whether he likes it or not, just so that he has that comfort, if you like, of knowing what's next. I suspect that a lot of children Jack goes to school with aren't as lucky and haven't found the change as easy to cope with. Being an assistant in a primary school, I know that head teachers and teachers have worked really hard, even during the lockdown, in order to get the school in a position to go back to where we are now. I've sent all my 3 children back to school. I think at this stage we have to get back to some sort of normality at some point, and it doesn't matter when you do it, whether you do it now or in a year's time. These things will always be an issue. At the moment, even though we haven't got very many children in school, it's still quite difficult. The children themselves are fantastic with it. They have adapted really quickly. For adults, I think it's a lot harder, especially the social distancing. You're used to getting together in the staff room, everyone sitting around a table. Everyone now is very wary when they go into the staff room to make sure that we sit 2 metres apart, to make sure that we've sanitised things that we've touched, so that the person coming after us knows that it's clean and that we've done our best to keep it safe.
Okay, fine. Stephen Less with a PH, 78. I live with my wife, Penny Less, and Bertie the dog. Basically, I'm a businessman in a number of businesses, including nightclubs, IT recruitment, bridging finance, a bit of film and television, property development. I do lots of things. Met lots of people. Bruce Forsyth.
You met him?
Yeah. Known him for 50 years. In fact, there's a picture of him and I on the window ledge, the last picture.
Do you think your business will look different after lockdown is lifted?
Well, I've always worked on the philosophy of turning a negative into a positive. Some people can't do that. I've always worked on the basis that you should give it a bloody good try. The shape of business afterwards is going to be different. A lot of businesses will fail. Well, lots of them already have failed because of lockdown, restaurants closing, shops closing, things going into administration, people out of jobs, etc., etc. It's changed the horizon during lockdown. Post-lockdown, I think people are going to be a lot warier about spending any money. I would say probably half the country, that's a guess, is taking it seriously, and the other half don't think it's going to happen to them. All over the world, there are people that are making decisions now, tonight, that are going to affect us tomorrow. We don't know what they are, but like we're making plans for tomorrow, so are lots of other people. But lots of other people making those plans are not nice people, or are people that control our destiny and our future, and we are going to have to abide by it. That tells you that you should always expect the unexpected.
The government was quite late in responding to the virus. I mean, looking back to the first few weeks of COVID-19, I do remember thinking that had the lockdown been initiated a few weeks early, we probably would have had many, many lives saved. I also remember being quite shocked that our hospitals didn't have enough PPE in that critical time. For a brief while, it did look like the entire health system might have just sort of collapsed at the prospect of COVID-19. But I'm also really grateful that the NHS did pull through, given what they had.
Having this time to stop and reassess, yes, I am very grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful that I live where I do. I'm grateful that I have a garden, that we are all, as a family, extremely healthy. And I'm now grateful for the small things like being able to get a takeaway coffee, whereas before I would have taken that very much for granted.
Being under this virus and stuff, it's not great. However, I feel like it kind of got me thinking. Before that, I was just kind of living my life very busy and occupied by doing so many things, but I didn't actually have time to think about myself and, who I really am.
I'm looking forward to going Chessington, Smith's Toy Superstores.
I think I'm grateful for, everything. I've got a really good family network, I've got a great girlfriend, I live in a nice place, I've got a good job, I'm pretty grateful of everything, to be honest. The restaurants.
I feel grateful that I have been able to spend this time with my family. I normally have college throughout the day, and then I come home and both my parents are starting to get ready for work, so I never really saw them. I'm quite grateful for that.
I'm just grateful for having that time because I work 2 jobs and I never seem to have much time for myself. So yes, it has been good.
The one thing I really want to grateful is about the British government try to keep everything be normal. Like, for example, like you go to supermarket, every day you still can buy the eggs, the vegetables, the fruit, the meat. You don't need to worry about, oh my God, one day I can't buy nothing at supermarket. But I think this is one thing the Britain government do really good.
I appreciate being able to just see my friends or just even seeing people on the road. I'm never going to take it for granted again, being able to go outside and hug people hello. I think that's the weirdest thing, is seeing family, friends and stuff and not being able to hug them. I'm grateful for like physical contact and like hugging people. I think is the biggest thing.
The things that I'm really, really grateful for at the moment, having the things that I've been given. You know, we never struggled for food, we never struggled for really anything financially, and then currently seeing other people of how they're struggling with it. It's been something I never really thought about.
I think as we come out of lockdown, I'm hoping that it will make me and my family a lot more appreciative of what we have and not take for granted things quite so much as we used to.
The Disney shop, the Lego shop, and hugging everybody in the world, and buying lots and lots of DVDs.